Starting with renal insufficiency from edition 6 of Marrow, page number 315. Other terms for the renal failure are acute renal failure and chronic renal failure. Acute renal failure there is acute kidney injury, and in chronic renal failure there is chronic kidney disease. Starting with first the hemolytic uremic syndrome. This is the second most common cause of the acute renal failure, and first most common cause is the decreased perfusion to kidney. Fine. What is this? Is the HUS, hemolytic uremic syndrome, is the second most common. 1 second. Right. So this is the second most common cause of the acute renal failure, HUS. Now there is cytotoxin mediated injury. What is happening is initial event is the infection. Fine. See, fine. Initially there will be an infection, and infection is caused by bacteria producing Shiga toxin. And Western, this is Shigella dysentery type 1. And then southern parts, in the western part, this will be the organism. In the southern parts of Asia and India, organism will be E. coli, O157 and H7. And recent epidemic was by 104 and H4. These are all the strains of the bacteria. Okay. So what we read was there is initially a cytotoxin mediated injury, and initial event is the infection by a bacteria producing Shiga toxin, and in different parts of the world, in different parts of the India and different parts of the world, different organism. In the western part, it is the Shigella dysentery type 1. In the southern parts of Asia and India, it is E. coli, that is of ETEC O157H7, and the recent epidemic was by O104 and H4. Mode of infection and ingestion of the unpasteurized food or undercooked meat. Okay, this is the mode of infection by the Shigella and Shiga producing bacteria by unpasteurized food or undercooked meat. Coming to the etiology, toxin producing enteropathogens, they enter and they cause the endothelial damage. There is thrombus in the blood vessel. Fine. Due to the endothelial damage, there is formation of the thrombus, which is endothelial damage is caused by this toxin producing enteropathogens. And then this thrombus in the blood vessel can have three fates: traumatic lysis of the RBC, that is hemolysis, microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. This thrombus in the blood vessel can cause further traumatic lysis of the RBC, leading to microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. Okay, this was the first fate. Second is the thrombus in the intrarenal blood vessel. This can cause blood renal dysfunction, leading to acute kidney injury. Fine. And then can cause lysis of the platelets, so leading to low levels of platelets. These are the three things that the thrombus was causing. First is the microencephalopathic hemolytic anemia due to the traumatic lysis of RBC. There can be renal dysfunction due to thrombus in the intrarenal blood vessel, leading to acute kidney injury. And there can be lysis of platelets, leading to low levels of platelets. Most common type of HUS following the diarrhea is D plus HUS. Rare is the D minus HUS. That is diarrhea with hemolytic uremic syndrome. This is the most common type. Now the HUS features hemolytic uremic syndrome and investigation. What are the features of HUS? Most commonly occurs in children less than 4 years of old. 4 years old, and initial event is the diarrhea. After 5 to 10 days of diarrhea, there is pallor due to the hemolysis, weakness, and oliguria develops. Okay. After 5 to 10 days of diarrhea, what is happening? There is pallor due to hemolysis, there is weakness, and then there is oliguria. HUS investigation is on the peripheral smear is this. Evidence of hemolysis is lyse RBC and cystocytes and low platelets. Fine. So in investigations, first we will do the peripheral smear, and in peripheral smear we will see the lyse RBC or the cystocytes and low platelets. Fine. Now, other investigation that could be done are, other than peripheral smear, elevated blood urea in the serum creatinine can be found out, and it is Coombs negative, not mediated by any antibodies. For the definitive testing, what could be done is stool culture to isolate the bacteria, and PCR to detect the bacterial antigen. However, the initial infection would have subsided by the time HUS develops, since the stool culture would be negative. Then why are we doing it? Hence, a definitive way would be to demonstrate presence of sugar-like toxin by ELISA. Fine. So, what is the definitive way? That goes to demonstrate sugar-like toxin by ELISA. Moving ahead, what is the treatment for HUS? HUS is a self-limiting condition. Treatment is just supportive. Antibiotics have no role in the management. Why? Because if antibiotics are given, it may worsen the course, as antibiotics can lyse the bacteria present, further causing the release of preformed toxins which worsen the disease. So antibiotics are not to be given in HUS because they will lyse the bacteria present and causing the further release of the toxins. Dialysis in the severe case of HUS. Now, the atypical HUS in which diarrhea is not present, this one atypical HUS is not preceded by diarrhea caused by the complement defect. There is deficiency of the factor H or antibodies to the factor H, unregulated activation of the complement pathway, and thrombosis, hemolysis of the low platelets and AKI. Triggered by minor illness like respiratory illness, management, what is done in the management is plasmapheresis, helps in removing the antibodies to factor H. Fine. And what else could be done is anti-C5a monoclonal antibody eculizumab could be given, inhibits the further complement activation. Okay, so what was happening in this atypical one is there is a complement defect. Why is the complement defect due to deficiency of factor H or antibodies to factor H? There is an unregulated activation of complement pathway, and this leads to thrombosis, hemolysis, and low platelets and AKI. And this all is triggered by a minor illness like respiratory illness. So what we are doing is main thing is antibodies and antibodies to factor H. So by plasmapheresis, we are removing the antibodies to factor H, and plasma infusion via plasma infusion we are providing factor H, which decrease the activation of factor H. Okay, and we can give a anti-C5a monoclonal antibody also, that is eculizumab. Now moving ahead and reading about the acute kidney injury. Definition by kidney disease improving global outcome guidelines is what? The in acute kidney injury, the serum creatinine increase in the serum creatinine by more than or equal to zero point 0.3 mg per dl from the baseline within 48 hours. This is the definition for acute kidney injury, that is more than 0.3 mg per dl from the baseline within what? Within the 48 hours. An increase in the serum creatinine to more than or equal to 1.5 times from the baseline within the past 7 days. Fine. There are two values of the serum creatinine that are given. First one is within 48 hours, there is increase of more than or equal to zero point 0.3 mg per deciliter, and in 7 days, the serum creatinine is more than or equal to 1.5 times. Fine. And the urine output is less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour or for more than 6 hours. This is the definition of acute kidney injury. This is how we define acute kidney injury. Fine. Now moving ahead, stages of the acute kidney injury. There are three stages given when the serum creatinine, stage 1 when the serum creatinine is 1.5 to 1.9 times of the baseline, and when the urine output is less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for 6 to 12 hours. Stage 2 is when the serum creatinine is more than 2 to 2.9 times of the baseline and the urine output is less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for how many hours? 12 hours. Stage 3 is when more than serum creatinine is more than 3 times the baseline or serum creatinine is more than 4 mg per deciliter. Any patient on dialysis and urine output is less than 0.3 ml per kg per hour for more than 24 hours or anuria for more than 12 hours. Schwartz formula calculation of the GFR in children. Starting with the acute kidney injury causes, the causes can be divided into the pre-renal one, renal one, and the post-renal one. Pre-renal one is the most common cause of the acute kidney injury in children. It is due to the hypoperfusion. Hypoperfusion can be due to the dehydration or blood loss or congestive cardiac failure. So these are the causes of hypoperfusion which lead to acute kidney injury, and they are included in the pre-renal causes. Okay, and in the renal causes, it can be parenchymal, tubular, or vascular. Parenchymal, there are glomerulonephritis and hemolytic uremic syndrome. That is the second most common cause of AKI, right? And in tubular, there can be acute tubular necrosis and acute interstitial nephritis or necrosis. And in vascular, there is renal vein thrombosis. Post renal, there is obstruction, there is stones and tumors, right? In the pre-renal, the most common cause of the AKI in children is hypoperfusion, dehydration, blood loss, and congestive cardiac failure. In the renal one, there is parenchymal glomerulonephritis, and HUS tubular one, acute tubular necrosis, and acute interstitial nephritis. A vascular one, renal vein thrombosis, and post-renal, there are obstruction. Obstruction can be due to stones or tumors. Moving ahead to the management of AKI, it can be by fluid management. Let's see. In case of pre-renal one, we have to give normal saline 20 to 30 ml per kg over 45 to 60 minutes. Response is diuresis 2 ml per kg over 2 to 3 hours urine output. If no response, add furosemide 1 to 2 mg per kg. And then, okay, this was the fluid management for pre-renal one. That is initially because it was mainly due to dehydration only, no. So we gave fluids in dehydration patient and at the rate 20 to 30 ml per kg over 45 to 60 minutes. Then diuresis 2 ml per kg over 2 to 3 hours urine output, and if no response, we added the furosemide in 1 to 2 mg per kg. In renal, we did the fluid restriction thing, determined by urine output and insensible water loss, monitored by a daily weight chart, and there is decrease of 0.5 to 1% body weight, and serum sodium remain in the normal range, that is 135 to 145 milliequivalents per liter. This was done in the renal one. And the management of AKI, there is also anemia management. It is usually due to hemodilution in the AKI and gets so there occurs anemia in AKI patients because of hemodilution and gets corrected along with the fluid correction, blood transfusion if anemia is due to blood loss. Okay. Now there is electrolyte imbalance also in AKI. Electrolyte imbalance causes the metabolic acidosis, and there is dilutional hyponatremia. Also, there is hyperkalemia, and the serum potassium is more than 5.5 milliequivalents per liter. So, if the serum potassium is more than 6 milliequivalents per liter, then we have to give potassium binding exchange resins like caxylate, that is, or sodium polystyrene sulfate. Fine. To remove the excess potassium, we are giving this caxylate. If the serum potassium is, we are seeing two values, right? Serum potassium is more than 6, and in here, serum potassium is more than 7 milliequivalents per liter, then it is predisposed to arrhythmias. So we have to stabilize the myocardium also. But, we have to give 10% calcium gluconate 0.5 to 1 ml per kg over 5 to 10 minutes under the cardiac monitoring. And then there is an intracellular shift. We have for intracellular shift of potassium, we can give an insulin glucose drip, sodium bicarb, and nebulization with the salbutamol. If all this fails, persistent hyperkalemia, then we have the ultimate is the dialysis. Fine. So what we read in AKI was we have to give fluid management in pre-renal and renal. In pre-renal, we are giving normal saline. See how much is the difference? Pre-renal, we are giving normal saline, and if the renal cause of AKI, then we are restricting the fluid. Anemia can occur due to the hemodilution. There is electrolyte imbalance. There can be dilutional hyponatremia and metabolic acidosis and hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia when the serum potassium is more than 5.5 milliequivalents per liter. If it is more than 6 milliequivalents per liter, we have to give potassium binding on exchange resins like caxylate. And if it is more than 7 milliequivalents per liter, then arrhythmias can occur. So we have to stabilize the myocardium by giving what? 10% calcium gluconate. And we can also use insulin drip and sodium bicarb and nebulization with the salbutamol, because all these causes intracellular shift of the potassium. And if there's still persistent hyperkalemia, ultimate is the dialysis. Now coming to chronic kidney disease, definition of CKD: when the GFR is less than 60 ml per minute per 1.73 meters square for more than 3 months, or This was the first definition, right? GFR less than 60 ml per minute per 1.73 meter square for more than or equal to 3 months, and persistence of the structural or the biochemical anomalies. Right. National Kidney Foundation Kidney Disease Outcome Quality Initiative Staging. This is what NKF KD OQI staging. Let's read. First one is increase in the GFR, that is hyperfiltration. This is early stage where surviving nephrons in the blood vessels hypertrophy and proliferate to increase the kidney function. Okay. And here the GFR is more than or equal to 90 ml per minute per 1.73 meter square. In stage 2, there is mild decrease in the GFR. This is the later stages where the surviving nephrons are affected, and here the GFR is 60 to 89. Moderate decrease in the GFR if between the range of 30 to 60. We have to remember like this only, right? 90, there is a 30-30 difference. 60 to 90, we can decrease one. Then 30 to 60. Then severe decrease in the GFR is 15 to 30, and kidney failure is called when GFR is less than 15 or on dialysis. Most common cause of the chronic kidney disease in children is the structural anomalies of the kidney. Okay. Now looking at the management of CKD, nutrition, normal diet is to be given. Anemia, it occurs when the GFR is less than 40 ml per minute per meter square because of again dilutional anemia occurs. Normocytic normochromic anemia, most common cause in the CKD is decrease in the erythropoietin, right? Anemia also occurs due to the decrease in the erythropoietin. Treatment is we have to give exogenous erythropoietin, that is darbepoetin subcutaneous injections. They decrease the need for blood transfusion. Now coming to the bone changes seen in the chronic kidney disease, CKD is a high bone turnover disease due to the increased activity of there is an increased activity of osteoblasts and osteoclasts. 1-alpha hydroxylation occurs in the kidney to yield the active form of the vitamin D. We all know that vitamin D deficiency and low calcium leads to increase in the PTH, which leads to bone resorption. Okay. There is osteitis fibrosa cystica due to hypocalcemia, hyperparathyroidism, hyperphosphatemia. This all is seen in osteitis fibrosa cystica. Treatment is calcitriol supplementation and calcium supplementation and phosphate binders like the calcium acetate and the calcium citrate and the sevelamer. Now coming to short stature in CKD, indication for recombinant growth hormone treatment. Oh, this is the condition where we have to give the recombinant growth hormone, and there also can occur hypertension. We read till bone changes, short stature. Last one is the hypertension in CKD. Dietary sodium restriction need to be done less than 2 gram per day. Antihypertensive medication of choice. First line is the ACE inhibitor. Second line are the ARB, that is angiotensin receptor blocker. And if all the above measures fail, start the dialysis. And best treatment is by renal transplantation in CKD patients. Fine. This was all. Now let's just revise what we read in this video. We started with renal insufficiency. In this video, we read about acute renal failure and chronic renal failure, that is AKI and CKD. We started HUS is the second most common cause of acute renal failure. Okay. There is a cytotoxin mediated injury by the Shiga toxin produced by various bacteria like Shigella, E. coli, and it was caused due to unpasteurized food and undercooked meat. And etiology, there was due to this toxin producing enteropathogens, there was endothelial damage which led to thrombus formation, and thrombus can cause further lysis of the RBC leading to microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. It can lodge in the intrarenal vessels causing renal dysfunction and leading to AKI, and it can cause lysis of the platelets. Most common type of HUS is with the diarrhea. Its features are, uh, first of all, it occurs most commonly in children less than 4 years. There is initial event is the diarrhea, and after 5 to 10 days, what was happening was hemolytic anemia, right? Hemolysis. So there will be pallor and there will be weakness and also oliguria due to the AKI. On peripheral smear, what will be seen is lyse RBC, schistocytes, and low platelets. Okay, and other investigations they have, we can do is elevated blood urea and serum creatinine and Coombs negative. Definitive testing can be done by stool culture to isolate the bacteria and PCR to detect the bacterial antigen. But hence a definitive way would be to demonstrate a presence of Shiga toxin by the ELISA. Okay. HUS treatment, it is a self-limiting condition. We just have to do supportive treatment, and there is no role of antibiotics in the management of HUS, because then the antibiotics will lyse the bacteria, which will lead to release of preformed toxin, which worsens the disease. And in severe cases of HUS, we do the dialysis. We read about atypical HUS, which is not preceded by diarrhea. It is caused by complement defect, right? There is deficiency of the factor H or antibodies to factor H, which leads to unregulated activation of the complement pathway, leading to thrombosis, hemolysis, low platelets, and AKI. And this all is triggered by a minor illness like respiratory infection. And in management, we have to do plasmapheresis, removing the antibodies to factor H, and the anti-C5a monoclonal antibody, that is eculizumab. Now, the acute kidney injury definition by the kidney disease is what is given is what acute kidney injury. There is increase in the serum creatinine by more than or equal to 0.3 mg per dl from the baseline within 48 hours, and there is increase in the serum creatinine to more than 1.5 times from the baseline within past 7 days. Also, there is urine output decrease to less than or equal to 0.05 ml per kg per hour for more than or equal to 6 hours. Now, there were certain stages of the acute kidney injury: stage 1, 2, and 3. It is based on the levels of serum creatinine and urine output. Serum creatinine, this rise was defined for 7 days, right? One second. This rise was for 7 days, and urine output for the hours are given. So, stage 1, the serum creatinine raised by 1.5 to 2 times, then 2 to 3 times, and more than 3 times. Fine. The stages 1 to 3. And urine output less than 0.5 in 6 to 12 hours, then for 12 hours, and then less than 0.3 for 24 hours, or anuria for more than or equal to 12 hours. Now, acute kidney injury causes, it can be prerenal, renal, and the postrenal. In prerenal, it was mainly due to hypoperfusion caused by dehydration, blood loss, and congestive cardiac failure. In renal, it can be parenchymal, tubular, or vascular. In parenchymal, glomerulonephritis and HUS. In tubular, that is acute tubular necrosis and acute interstitial nephritis or necrosis. And in vascular, there is renal vein thrombosis. In the postrenal one, can be caused by obstruction, which can be due to stones or tumors. Management of the AKI was by fluid management. First, if the cause is pre-renal, we have to give normal saline. And if no response to that, we can add furosemide. And in renal cause of the AKI, then we have to do fluid restriction. There can be anemia due to hemodilution, which gets corrected by the fluid correction, and blood transfusion if anemia is due to blood loss. Electrolyte imbalance can occur by metabolic acidosis, leading to metabolic acidosis and dilutional hyponatremia, and there can be hyperkalemia if the serum potassium levels are more than 5.5 milliequivalents per liter, and if serum potassium is more than 6 milliequivalents per liter, then we have to give potassium binding exchange reagents like Oxalate, and if serum potassium is more than 7 milliequivalents per liter, then they are predisposed to arrhythmias. So we have to stabilize the myocardium by giving 10% of the calcium gluconate, right? Now, the chronic kidney disease was defined when the GFR is less than 60 ml per minute per 1.73 meter square for more than or equal to 3 months. There is persistence of structural or biochemical anomalies. Right. This is the definition of CKD. And there are again stages of the CKD. In AKI, there were 3 stages. In CKD, there are 5 stages on the basis of GFR. There is initially in the stage 1, there is increase in the GFR. That is hyperfiltration in the early stages. The surviving nephrons in the blood vessel, they hypertrophy. And the GFR is more than or equal to 90. There is a difference of 30 in this. And then again, in stage 2, there is mild GFR decrease. 60 to 90 is the GFR, moderate. 30 to 60 severe. 15 to 30, and in kidney failure there is less than 15 or on dialysis. And most common cause of the CKD in children is structural anomalies of the kidney. Now, looking at the management of this CKD, it can be done by the nutrition, anemia, bone changes, short structure, and hypertension. Let's nutrition. We have to give normal diet in CKD. Anemia can occur due to decrease in the erythropoietin, so we have to give dalbapiotin. Bone changes occur due to increase in the osteoblast and osteoclast activity, and there can be vitamin D deficiency and low calcium, leading to increase in the PTH and bone resorption. Treatment we can give by calcitriol supplementation and calcium supplementation and phosphate binders like calcium acetate and the calcium citrate and the sevelamer. Short structure in the CKD, it is an indication for recombinant growth hormone. Hypertension, we have to do sodium restriction, and antihypertensive drugs can be used like ACE inhibitors and the ARBs. If all the above fails, then we have to do the dialysis, and best treatment is by the renal transplantation. This was all. Thank you.